sports are really important vehicles for relationships.
We have purpose. We have a why. We bring people together. We connect.
I feel like God is our greatest supporter and our greatest coach.
This is Rabbi Era Sherman and Rabbi on the Sidelines. We're excited to welcome you to the show, which speaks about the intersection of sports and faith. This morning, we are joined by Sinai Temple's own Ken Levine of the blogspot Hollywood and Levine, Emmy Award-winning producer and the writer for many of our favorite shows, Jeffersons, Cheers, MASH, Simpsons, and so much more, and a Major League Baseball announcer for the Seattle Mariners, Baltimore Orioles, voice of Dodger Talk, and my own Syracuse Chiefs. Ken, it's so great to have you on the show. Thanks for coming on today.
Thanks very much. You should be one of the guest hosts on Jeopardy. You got this down.
I'm trying here. Better at announcing pages on a high holiday prayer book than Jeopardy Jeopardy hosting. It's so good to have you. And I just want to tell everybody the connections of Rabbi on the Sidelines and how Ken Levine, is here with us this morning. Many weeks ago, we had the honor of hearing from Dave Sims, the announcer play-by-play of the Seattle Mariners. And I got an email from you, Ken, that said that you were Dave Sims' play-by-play announcer for the Seattle Mariners. And then there was a little line that said, I also was the broadcaster for the Syracuse Chiefs in 1988. That, everybody, was my hometown growing up in the Syracuse Chiefs. I was a young boy then. And even better, another guest of our show, Dave Cohen, former voice of the New York Yankees, was your play-by-play with the Syracuse Chiefs, my Little League coach. And we found out quickly that Ken Levine lived 3 doors down from the Shermans in Syracuse. So it's great to connect right here on Rabbi on the Sidelines at Sinai Temple. Good to have you.
It's great to be here. You need to clean up your lawn, by the way, because, we would drive by it, I remember, and, a lot of your toys were just still out on the front lawn.
Well, that was because it was, April. It was probably still snowing then.
Yeah, no, it snowed in April, and then it was 1,000 degrees with thunderstorms in May.
Exactly. When my wife experienced a Syracuse summer, Rabbi Guzik, she said, I don't get it. It was just sunny and now it's thundering. How do you predict this? And you live in the elements in upstate New York. So I want to get to your journey because your journey seems to not make sense, right? You are a writer and a producer of some of TV's best shows. And then in this other world, a Major League Baseball announcer. So take us to when you were a child and you told me the story as we sat in my backyard during this pandemic of going to Dodger Stadium and taking that cassette recorder. What would you do up in the rafters there?
Well, when I was a kid growing up, I always wanted to be a baseball announcer. You know how kids always want to be players, and then you kind of reach that age where you realize you're not good enough to become professional. For me, it was 8 years old. But the Dodgers came to town, and I heard Vin Scully for the first time. And I thought, wow, this could be great because you could be an announcer and you could still be part of the team and you could be there every day to see every game and you could travel to exotic places like Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. To me, I thought that this is a fantastic job. So I always wanted to be a baseball announcer in the back of my mind. And then, you drift off into other professions and fortunately for me, I drifted off into one that I was successful at, which was television writing. And I reached a point, I was in my mid-30s. It was 1985. But I'm only 55 now, but still, don't do the math. I had just finished creating and producing a series for Mary Tyler Moore. And I thought to myself, I've been on MASH, I've been on Cheers, I have an Emmy, I did a show for the Queen of Television. Is that all there is? And I thought back to those days when I wanted to be a baseball announcer. And so I thought, if I don't pursue it now, I never will. So I grabbed a cassette tape recorder and went to the upper deck of Dodger Stadium. I didn't want to sit in the good seats because I figure, if somebody is paying $30 to see a ball game, he doesn't want some idiot sitting next to him going, there's a line drive to deep left field. So I thought, if I'm sitting way up in the top section where it's general admission and the seats aren't reserved, I thought, okay, if somebody is annoyed by me, they can just move over somewhere else. And I did this for about 2 years. I went to Dodger Stadium and Anaheim Stadium and just recorded game after game after game, and got better and better to the point where I said to my lovely sainted wife, Debbie, wouldn't it be fun to spend a bucolic summer somewhere in the United States? And she said, okay. And so I gave her a list of all of the minor league cities. There was like 120 of them. And I said, just check off the places that you would enjoy spending the summer. And those are the only places that I will send my tape. And she checked off like 20. I was kind of hoping she'd check off like 60, but she checked off 20. So I said, okay. And I sent off tapes to those 20 teams. And I got 3 offers, including Syracuse. And Syracuse was the AAA affiliate, which is just the level right below the major leagues of the Toronto Blue Jays. And so I took that job. Now, my wife, she was kind of misinformed, I guess, because she thought that Syracuse was going to be like the Berkshires.
She'll talk to Rabbi Guzik after this of their experience.
Yeah.
Lots of misinformation.
Yeah, this is going to be just like Tanglewood, and there's the Finger Lakes and everything, and there's salt mines in Syracuse. Like you were saying, the weather is horrible in Syracuse. But I did that for a year, and then got a chance to go to Tidewater, which is the New York Mets AAA affiliate, for 2 years. And that was an easier sell to my wife, Debbie, because I said, just think of San Diego with humidity.
Yes.
But I mean, there was the beach and it was a resort area. And then there was an opening for the Baltimore Orioles. And I sent in my tape and amazingly got the job.
So let's go back to Syracuse for a moment, because you said before this, you had an amazing career of writing television shows that we all have watched our entire life. But you have this little interview and clip right here that I'm going to show that really explains what it's like to do radio at the AAA level in the 80s. So let's take a look.
Chiefs. We were on a radio station that was truly a coffee pot. Your Wi-Fi has a larger coverage area than our radio station. We were like 250 watts at 1490. And at night, it literally was so bad that when it cut power, the fans in the left side of the ballpark and the grandstands couldn't hear the station anymore. Okay, it cut out.
So that was my family. We were definitely in the left field stands of good old MacArthur Stadium. So what are the learning experiences? This is your first professional baseball job. Probably easier to be in the grandstands of Anaheim Stadium and Dodger Stadium than being in old MacArthur Stadium. What did you learn that you then took to the level of the Orioles and Mariners?
Well, the interesting thing is that I would do the games from the stands and it would be a lot of fun. But if I had a cold, I missed a day, or if I was going to go to a screening of a movie or something, I would miss a night. But when you're doing a full season of 144 games, it was the first day of the season, and I thought to myself, something that I should have thought about earlier, I suppose, but I thought to myself, what if I do this for 2 weeks and then hate it and have 127 more games to go? But fortunately, I came to the end of the season and I was depressed that it was over. And that's how I knew that I was really hooked. And yeah, there's certainly a grind to it, doing it day after day. And of course, the travel in the minors is not charter jets and 4-star hotels, but it was also like following a great saga, or a soap opera. And there's something special about following a team and being around the players each and every day as the season unfolded. And I absolutely loved it.
Especially at the AAA level, when these are up and comings, right? Half of those guys are never going to make a major league team. But I remember, for instance, in 1996, Carlos Delgado, Sean Green, Alex Gonzalez, right? They were playing right in front of my eyes. The bathrooms weren't even in the dugout. You had to go to right field to the locker room over there.
Yeah.
Columbus Clippers as a child, seeing Posada and Jeter and Mariano Rivera, right? What is it like looking into their eyes, knowing that some of these guys are going to be literally Hall of Famers, and calling those games as basically, their introduction into the major leagues?
Right. Well, most of those players were known as prospects.
Yes.
And we would follow those prospects, and we would also promote them on the air because, like you said, it's a chance to see some future all-stars before they make it big. But the ones that really kind of tugged at my heart, if I'm being honest, are all of the players that came through there either on the rise or on the downside of their career. And you just knew that they were never going to see a day in the major leagues. And yet they were playing basically because baseball meant so much to them, or the alternative was going back into the real world and, working at UPS, or as one player said, handing out sports equipment at a local park. So those were the players that I really, I guess, attached myself to. And again, at the time when I'm in the minor leagues, I have no idea that I will ever go to the majors. But yes, along the way, there were some great players who I saw coming up. I remember when Deion Sanders signed with the Yankees. He signed with the Yankees, and I also think he signed with Dallas Cowboys for football. But he started playing baseball with the Yankees. And it was his very first professional game. And it's at Old MacArthur Stadium.
Wow.
And Deion Sanders comes up to the plate, and he takes his bat and he draws a dollar sign and
that's amazing.
At home plate. And I thought to myself, I like this guy. Okay, this guy is going somewhere. Yeah, you do see some characters along the way.
So let's go to the entertainment world for a moment, because you got to break AAA baseball. You basically send out your tape, text Simone, lovely man, lovely family, calls you and said, okay, I'm going to do this. But on the other end, right, every young professional, and you grew up here in Los Angeles, but every young kid moves out to LA and say, I'm going to be a writer. I'm going to be the next, sitcom writer, producer for these shows and win Emmys. But you actually did it. But the question is, how do you do it? So let's go to, you get your break, if you wish, for the Jeffersons, right? And we'll look at that story real quick.
Okay.
Your breaks come to you from in ways that you never expected, that you could never prepare for, no matter how much networking you do. Ken's mom was a golfer and had a regular game with some friends of hers, and they were out playing, I think, at Bryn Mawr in the Valley, if I'm not mistaken, and a fellow was going to play through. A guy was going out to play 9 before he went to his work, I suppose. It was in the morning. And he was going to play through as a single. And so he played a couple holes with them, and they struck up a conversation. Ken's mom and this fellow struck up a conversation, and she asked him what he did. And he said, I'm the story editor on the Jeffersons. His name was Gordon Mitchell, Whitey Mitchell. And she said, being a good mom, she said, my son's trying to be a comedy writer. And having treated him well, he was very gracious and said, well, have him send me something. And we sent him a Mary Tyler Moore spec we had written. And he brought us in, and we came in with some ideas. We were ready to go, and we actually sold one.
Your mom's a golfer. Somebody passed us through. Said my son's a writer.
Yep.
Today you're here on Rabbi on the Sidelines. Is that talent? Is it skill? Is it luck? What do you need to do what you were able to do in that world?
I think you need three things. You need talent, certainly. You need luck, which plays a big part in it. And I think you need the drive. You need the hustle. You need to really be passionate and work hard and put in the extra effort. And hopefully all three of those things come together to some degree. But when we started out, my partner and I, we both had daytime jobs, and we said, we are going to take 2 years and just keep writing script after script after script. And we figured over the course of 2 years, somebody somewhere is going to recognize a germ of ability here and give us a break. We were extremely lucky. It happened within 6 months.
Wow.
But we had still written 3 spec scripts. We had written a pilot, spec Mary Tyler Moore Show, which got rejected by Mary Tyler Moore Show staff. We wrote a Rhoda episode that got rejected. Ironically, the Rhoda was rejected by their showrunner, Charlotte Brown, who now lives 3 doors down from me. And we're friends, but when I see her, I'll oftentimes say, Charlotte, read the script one more time. Just
Nice.
Give it one more read. I'm telling you, there's something there. There's something there. Yeah.
And so that's the Jeffersons. And then one thing leads to another. And now all of a sudden you do the sports thing. And let's talk about the Simpsons for a moment, because you bring some of that sports world knowledge. You mentioned International League, Dan Horde, who was your co-play-by-play announcer in Syracuse, right? First, let's start with the entertainment to the sports world. What skills and talents that you had within writing and production did you bring to Syracuse and then Baltimore and Seattle and the Dodgers?
I think a sense of storytelling, that I'm not just a reporter who is basically just telling you ball 1, ball 2. I'm giving you an overall picture. I'm trying to develop some suspense. If there is a lull in the game or your team is down 8-1 and it's the 4th inning, it's like, why would anyone still want to be listening? Well, if you have stories, if you're talking about all kinds of things and keep it interesting, then you're going to hold on to an audience. Now, I never played the game professionally, so I don't have that to bring to the table. I'm not able to say, well, when I was a shortstop for the Cardinals, we did this. All I can bring is my own personality, and hopefully that's unique, and hopefully that's something that will resonate with an audience.
So there's 2 different types of stories. In baseball, right, you find the stories. Actually, it's funny. I remember watching that video of the Syracuse piece, and you said there was a guy who went like 1 for 67 and just started making up a story about him that then gained traction. I forgot his name.
Yeah, let me tell that story because it's a great story. Okay. As we mentioned, we had a terrible signal for our radio station, and people would come up and complain. And so as a way of saving face, I used to say that, well, we're just the flagship station for the worldwide Syracuse Chiefs radio network. Now, the irony, of course, is with the internet that they're online and you can hear them anywhere around the world. Right. But you sure couldn't then. And I would pause for station identification during the broadcast on the worldwide Syracuse Chiefs radio network. And I would talk about how we picked up another station in Bhutan, how the emperor of Bhutan is a big fan of the Syracuse Chiefs. And I would just, make up all this bubba-misa. And we had a player named Norm Tanucci. He was a sweet kid from Connecticut, but he was in a terrible slump. He was going 0 for 4, 0 for 9, striking out 3 times the game. He just had a terrible time. But I made up this whole thing that he was a national hero in Borneo, that his father during World War II had parachuted in behind enemy lines and helped save the country, and that the currency is tenuches, and that 99% of the male babies and 97% of female babies were named Norm. So I would create this whole thing, and I even got him to record some things for me, saying, "Hi, this is Norm Tanucci," saying hi to all my friends in Borneo. It just was kind of a way of talking about him without having to reiterate the fact that he was 0 for June. So one night we're in Oklahoma City, and he gets a triple his first at bat. And so when he comes up for a second at bat, I talk about it and how excited everybody in Borneo was that Norm got this triple. And the next pitch, he just blasts into orbit.
Oh, wow.
And my call was, there's a long drive to deep left field. Steve Kemp back to the track, to the wall. No school tomorrow in Borneo. And that sort of became a signature. And the general manager of the Blue Jays, who later went on to the Milwaukee Brewers, every time I would see him for 15 years after, he was, no school tomorrow in Borneo. It kind of became a famous minor league call.
So you literally create that story.
Yeah.
And now into the entertainment world, right? Let's take The Simpsons, because also, by the way, a very established cartoonist, right? Where you literally create characters, you create the city of Goofball, and it comes alive so that it's something that we just know in reality. So what is the difference in terms of the audience, right? You know that, yeah, I'm listening to a Syracuse Chiefs game and getting that story. But how is it different to tell the story or to create the story for an audience that doesn't know that the story exists?
Well, in the case of The Simpsons, you're talking about an episode called Dancin' Homer, which David Isaacs and I wrote. I think it was the second season. It was pretty early in the run. And the key to the story is it's not about baseball. It's about Homer. It's about the characters. And we try to load it up with as many kind of baseball-related Easter eggs, if I can say that on a Jewish broadcast.
Of course.
That
universal audience here.
Okay, that we could find. But also, we wanted to make sure that even if you knew nothing about baseball, that you would enjoy this episode, that it was about the characters, and that the baseball was basically just a bonus for fans who got it. And we had a lot of really inside jokes. As you mentioned, we had names of various people. We didn't use Tex Simone, but we called him Tex Antoine something else, I think. But we tried to use names, and we tried to make fun of that whole world. One thing that going to minor league baseball games is that the outfield walls are just filled with advertisements.
Yeah.
And so we had advertisements like Springfield Savings, safe, 1895 to 1974, 1977, current, or hit this sign and win a free coffin. Because there used to be these signs, hit this sign and win a free suit.
Yeah.
So, for those who are paying real attention, those were there. It's kind of like, remember the Mad Magazine articles where there would be all these other little jokes in the corner if you were willing to to pay attention. That's kind of what we did with that episode of The Simpsons. And it's great that Sam Simon, Jim Brooks, Matt Groening, the producers of the show gave us that freedom and said, okay, go to town.
So the sports world goes into the faith world. Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
I'm in echo.
And of course, we also utilize the sports world a lot in Cheers. And David and I wrote Cheers for 9 years, and Sam Malone is a former Boston Red Sox pitcher. So we dealt with sports any number of times. We also wrote an episode with Kevin McHale of the Boston Celtics, and the premise of the episode was that the guys, they always have that, bar talk where they're talking about, nonsense. And they got into a discussion of how many bolts there were in the parquet floor at the Boston Gardens. And that led to a whole episode. And we actually went to the Boston Gardens. It was really fun. Yeah.
So there's sports, there's entertainment, but what about faith? Your faith as an identifiable Jew, did that ever come into either the sports world or when you're writing these sitcoms, use the word Baba Maisa, right? Whether it's words, stories, we are the people of the book, we are people of stories. How did that work in terms of the entertainment world? The Jeffersons, Cheers, MASH.
I think, MASH is a very Jewish show. I mean, it really is.
So define Jewish show. That's interesting that you say that.
Well, it's sort of the Jewish sensibilities, I would say. One thing I think that Jewish writers bring is some of the core values of Judaism, the promotion of humanity, family, the importance of education, charity, the sense of a greater good. And I think that those core values tend to get reiterated and celebrated in the type of shows that we write, and I think that's true for all of the shows that we write, at least for some of the people that I know. And there's also, of course, the Jewish sense of humor. Books have been written on that as to it's a defense mechanism or it's a coping mechanism. And all of those are true and all of those are factors. But I also think that it's a way that we Jews choose to appreciate life and choose to appreciate the absurdities of life, to recognize it and to laugh at it. And we recognize the value to your soul, to your psyche, to everything of laughter. And so I think humor has become a large part of our culture. And for me personally, not being a good athlete, it was a way to try to get girls, to try to impress girls, because I was at least funny. I couldn't throw a spiral, but I was at least funny. And I remember as a kid, as a teenager, watching the Dick Van Dyke Show. And here was Rob Petrie, who was a comedy writer, and he was married to Laura Petrie, this beautiful woman. And he was a comedy writer. I thought, wait, you could get a beautiful woman like Laura Petrie without being a quarterback? Hey, I can do that, So humor led me in that direction.
So how do you know when something is funny, or how do you know when it will be funny, and how do you know when it's actually a success?
Boy, it's so hard because here's how hard it is. I've had plays, and other playwrights will tell you the exact same thing. One line will get a huge laugh one day, and then it gets nothing the next, and a different line that the audience didn't respond to the first night suddenly gets a roar of laughter. You would think the short answer is, well, if people laugh, then you know it's funny. Right. But, sometimes it's like so strange where like an audience will suddenly laugh at something. And I think to myself, how is it that 125 strangers all suddenly find this funny, and the next night 125 other strangers don't?
Yeah, I think we're actually going to add the.
Yeah,
we're gonna add the
every night is going to find it funny.
We're going to add the applause sign for sermons now, actually, in the back of the sanctuary, because this is a funny piece. The congregation must laugh, right? But it's the same thing, right? When you prepare a sermon, right? Is this line going to go over? Not in sometimes humor, but sometimes in terms of the point that we are making. It's fascinating because when somebody comes to a rabbi, you'll have one person say, "That was the best sermon I ever heard," and the same sermon, "That was the worst sermon I ever heard." Sure. That, I believe, actually is a successful sermon because it's not a one-size-fits-all. And I imagine it's the same in terms of writing shows as well.
Right. And you know what? I think you're able to deliver a message better with humor because people are more open and receptive.
Absolutely.
If it is delivered through humor. And that's certainly what we tried to do with MASH, because MASH was a very issue-oriented show. I mean, we were not at all discreet about our dislike of war and our hatred of guns, but it was all done through humor.
So that's actually my next question. Sports, humor in sitcoms and TV. What are the role of both of those in our society today? Right? Sitcoms, we're in more of a world of reality TV where you don't necessarily see the Mashes and Cheers and Jeffersons, or, I have my own TV station right here, right? I don't have to wait till NBC calls me. Obviously, it's a different audience, but we're creating our own content. What was the role during those times within a larger society? And also in the sports world, what did you see as the role of those storytelling outside of the sports world?
Well, one thing about television back in the Pleistocene era when I was in it was that it really was much more of a shared event. I mean, you look at the last episode of MASH that was seen by like 121 million people. The last episode of Cheers was seen by 84 million people. And, we used to talk about water cooler shows, that people would watch a show on Thursday night and they'd go to work on Friday morning and they would be standing around the water cooler discussing, "Oh, did you see that show last night?"
Right.
Well, now people are watching shows on a million different platforms. There's all these options. People are binge watching. They're time shifting. So there's very little of that. And one of the things that I think sports still provides, and it's one of the reasons why I think the NFL is so successful on television, is because it's one of the last shared events. That if you want to find out what's going to happen on the Ram game on Sunday, you're going to watch the Ram game live at 1:00 on Sunday afternoon. You're not going to just tape it and watch it at your convenience Thursday morning sometime. So I think sports allows us to still have a shared event, and they are now so few and far apart. I mean, you think about the Oscars, and the Oscars used to be such a huge event. I mean, next to the Super Bowl, the Oscars would draw massive audiences. And this year, less than 10 million people watched the Oscars. More people watched the NFL draft than watched the Oscars. More people watched Jeopardy than watched the Oscars. And, to me, we're really, as a society, losing something, losing that basically shared experience. I mean, you probably remember as a kid, certainly my generation did, the importance of radio and how we all got our music by listening to the radio. And we had radio stations that were our favorites and disc jockeys who were our favorites. And here in Los Angeles, you could go to the beach in the summer on a Sunday afternoon, and it was almost as if there was a PA playing a radio station, that everybody was listening to KHJ at the same time. And now kids get their music through TikTok, through Spotify, different ways. You don't have that shared event again.
And I actually think so. That's what Judaism, I think, provides. And I think that's what we're excited for this holidays coming up, right? The one thing we missed, was that shared experience. Empty sanctuaries that people are watching replays of Shabbat services, right?
Right.
No. And actually last year for High Holidays, as synagogues around the country and world said, we're going to pre-record our services here. Thankfully at Sinai said, no, we are going to do a live event because people will, wherever they are going to have that shared experience. And that's why I know we're very excited to have the, God willing, in-person physical shared experience, because it goes to the humor, right? When we were saying jokes and sermons online, what is the audience responding there? When you don't hear the
laughs. Yeah.
Exactly. And so,
there's a sense of community when everyone gets together. Part of the experience is seeing people and talking to them and catching up with them and seeing their daughters growing up and that type of thing. That as you sit in your seat and you see the people around you, and everyone grows up through the years.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we are honored that Ken Levine has joined us here on Rabbi on the Sidelines. You literally have allowed us as a country to grow up on your humor, on your stories, on your play-by-plays within Dodgers and Orioles and Mariners, and for me personally in my own childhood in Syracuse Chiefs. It's literally speaking to a legend, and most importantly, we are just thrilled that you are part of our community, and I am honored to be part of your community here at Sinai Temple. Ken Levine, it is a pleasure to have you. If you have not checked out Hollywood and Levine, please check out the podcast, the blog, Questions of the Week. You can find out about the Mount Rushmore of broadcasting, what needs to change in baseball and entertainment today. Emmy Award-winning producer and writer, as you said, though, most importantly, just a wonderful human being, a mensch. Ken, it's so great to have you here. And as we say back in Syracuse, let's go Chiefs.
Okay, let's go Chiefs.